Tonight's subject is in praise of wisdom. The Bible speaks of two entirely different types. The wisdom of this world, which they say is foolishness in the eyes of God. And then the wisdom of God, which is foolishness in the eyes of man. But the road to the wisdom of God, to the great secret of God, is not through some initiation ceremony or philosophical instruction, but through the highest gifts of the Spirit, which is love. If this is your guide, you can't go wrong. Wisdom in the Scriptures is personified as a little child. And you will read it in the 8th chapter of the book of Proverbs. The 8th chapter of the book of Proverbs, from the 22nd verse through to 36. I was in possession before he brought forth angels, before the heavens were established, before the earth was established. I was beside him as a little child, and daily I was his delight, rejoicing in his inhabited world, and rejoicing in the sons of men. Listen to me, my son, and keep my ways. He who finds me finds life and obtains the favor of God. He who misses me injures himself. All who hate me love death. Now here is the personification of wisdom, a little child. We are told in Scripture, wisdom is justified by her children. Here we see wisdom now becoming a parent, bringing forth itself personified as a little child. So when it brings forth itself in an entirely different world, this wisdom is altogether different. The one in whom the child appears does not differ from what he was 1 second before. If he never went to a college, he cannot claim he did go to one. And what he knew of this world of seasons, he knows no more. If he was all done when he started to put a stamp to an envelope, he still remains all done. He cannot enter into any conversation with the wisdom of this world beyond what he was when it happened to him. And what happened to him will lead him into an entirely different world, and it will appear foolishness in the eyes of this world. So he is no wiser in the eyes of the people of Caesar, and what he has stepped into begins to expand rapidly, and he comes into all kinds of things that he cannot even discuss. He'll discuss it, but only a few will be able to understand. And what he is discussing is not only a wisdom beyond the wisdom of this world, but a power beyond the wildest dream of the power of this world. Now you and I will not, because electricity could be dangerous, cease to use it. We know that it's fatal if misused. But you and I wouldn't stop driving in a car because every year 50,000 Americans alone are killed on the highways through cars. And how many hundreds of thousands are injured? And some, well, very seriously. Many of them. But we still drive cars. So because the power we use on Caesar's level, if misused, becomes fatal and dangerous, we don't stop using it. Well, this power, of which I speak, is infinitely more dangerous. But we have to experiment. And you're not going to stop using it because it is dangerous. And so tonight we come down to the one use of it where it cannot hurt you. It can hurt you if you realize that the road to this power, the road to the wisdom of God, is through the highest gift of the Spirit, which is love. Now last Tuesday night I told you the story of a friend of mine, and many of you were present. I think you will catch what I said even without going over the story itself. In a vision which he shared with us, because he shared it with me and then I shared it with you, he was told in vision to use his imagination for another in the same way he uses it when he writes a story. Well, he's a professional writer and writes stories daily. For in the writing of a story on the level of Caesar, he has to play all the parts to make it natural. So when he makes a love scene or dramatizes a love scene, he has to make love to himself. And as he said in his letter to me, stab himself in the face if the situation calls for it. So with this in mind, all in a dream, he thought he would try it, and he tried it with two that he mentioned, and said, and person after person. Who the persons were, I do not know. With his success in these, I hope many of you are friendly enough with him to be brought into his sphere to use you in the experiment. Now he wrote me a letter, which I told you. I didn't tell the end of it. I didn't realize what was written, the very end in the script was part of it. So he wrote me another letter, which I got a day after. Well, the story is this. In his experience, he left his body and did what he would in a play, and assumed the body of the one he wanted to help, and became not only another person, but another sex. For the one he wanted to help was a young woman. And in this, her immediate need to him, the most pressing need, was a car. So, after putting on the personality of the young woman, looking into the mirror and pronouncing herself beautiful, because he is not the man now, he is the young woman. Then he tripped out onto the street where the new car was waiting, got into the car, and drove off, sitting in the form of a woman, this woman, with the wind blowing against his face. And then after enjoying the ride, with a few little moments of discomfort where his high heel was not quite what he was accustomed to wear. And so then he pulled over to the curb and parked the car. Got out of the body of the woman now, looked at the woman sitting behind the wheel, and she gave him this radiant, glowing smile, and that was it, that's it. The very next day, he goes to a restaurant where this young lady works. And she, in a moment of excitement, took him and took his wife out to show the car. It's the make car, the color car, and the top was done. Everyone with a thing like this would like to know, but how did she get it? Well, since she did not have a car, she has not been visiting her mother. Her mother, knowing the reason for the lack of visits was only a car, sent her this unexpected gift of money, which he then put down on the new car, the make, the color, and the convertible, the top down. The mother said to my friend, because on Easter Day then they drove out with him and called on him and said it really was a very selfish gift, because I haven't seen her as often as I'd like to see her. I gave her the money that would have permitted her to get the means to see me more often, which is the car. And so we always justify these things on the level of Caesar. But it was on that level this whole thing started. He gave her what she did not have either the strength or the faith to give herself. Now, because she had the car, she wants to disengage herself from a relationship which has been present in the interim, for one who works in the same restaurant, playing music. He's a musician. A man much older than she is. But he has been kind. He has been very considerate. He might have had ulterior motives, that I do not know. He did propose marriage, but she declined and said, no, let us remain friends. But he would take her home every night when she worked late and take her to her apartment, where she lives. And then allow her to use the car in the course of the day. Then, as it went on from weeks to months and months to months, he not only would take her home, but would suggest that he would come in and sit and rest for a while, which he did, and that became a habit. To the point even of receiving an extra key, that he may use the apartment in her absence. But now with her car and this new freedom, he doesn't want this to continue. So she said to my friend, who was so successful in this, I don't want him hurt. I want him out of my life, but no hurt. He has been kind, he's been sweet, he's been generous, he's been everything in love. Only I want this to come to an end without the hurt of this person. My friend, being very human, as we all are, for anyone wearing these garments or wearing garments of animals, may I tell you, anyone in this world who he appears to be, the so-called holy man, when he tells you how holy he is, don't trust him through the door. Don't for one moment, but he will let the door. Because while you wear these garments, you are subjected to the animal power. And so, as he said in his first letter to me, I love her in the same way you love your daughter Vicky. Well, that's really going something. Because if anyone could take a total stranger who waits on his table and love her with a degree and with the same affection that I love my Vicky, I take my hat off to her. Because I breathe with her. I think her every word will be my word. And if you're a father of a daughter, not a son, get the son. But of a daughter, you know what I mean when it comes to a daughter. At least it's my case. And so he said, when I heard of this relationship, it so annoyed me that I think I must have been, in some strange way, as you would be all a bit jealous of his monopolizing the time and the affection of this girl. So I thought I would do exactly what she asked, to free her. Now remember, she wanted him out of her life without her. That was her desire. She appreciated his affection, his tenderness, his consideration, his generosity, all these things. But then when he got in to her body and became that being, he wasn't playing two parts. He severed himself from his body and took possession of her personality, her mask, her everything. And then, when it came to severing this relationship, he felt a great love when he entered her body. And his life had painted anyone's body with love. It's the easiest thing in the world to do. So I got into this body. Then came the request of complete freedom from this relationship. At that moment, instead of being kind, I treated him as you would scum. In other words, I even found myself using a physical gesture, which I noticed one day she used in the restaurant when a man tried to be offensive. And she turned up her nose, and with a flick of the hand, what that thing is, I don't know, it acted, or rather suggested that she simply expelled him as something obnoxious, something that was offensive from her, was a complete expulsion from her being, by the turning of the nose up and some flick of the hand. And in this, as this lady, for I'm not the man, I am the being. I did the same thing. Now that's not what she wanted me to do to him, but I did it. I completely expelled him from my life, as though he were obnoxious. But now here came the horror of horror. I couldn't get out of that. I am completely there. I can't get out of it. And for 6 hours, I struggled and wrestled with myself, to the point where my wife said to me, "Who are you?" And I was panicked. I was scared to death that I would find myself in the nut house, thinking I am a girl. No one would know what I did to produce this. And yet I couldn't get out of bed. I am this young woman. Finally, how I do not know, but finally after 6 hours of labor and struggle, somehow I got out. How I don't know. I was so exhausted, I fell into a sleep and slept for 12 hours. 12 unbroken hours. But at the very end, it was worth it. For the most heavenly voice of love spoke to me. And it said, "I have restored my soul. I am now gathering my own in love, in beauty, and in joy." And that was it. So heavy in love to me, having had this experience, Neville, I wish you would caution the class and tell them not at any time to exercise their imagination, save they exercise it in love. For they will be trapped, as I was trapped. I moved into it willingly and easily through love. But when once in it, something in me, because she did not request this, when I brought about the divorce of the two, she requested the whole thing would be settled amicably, in a loving manner. Fully appreciative of what he had done at the time he played that part, but he will play no further part in my life. And he moved by some other feeling of ill will, exercised ill will while in her body and became locked in it. So he was big enough and generous enough to share with me his own experience again, that I may share with you and warn you, that when you are going to exercise this enormous power for love, which is not on this level at all, do it in love, and you never go wrong. It's so altogether different, as we are told in the 9th chapter of the book of Jeremiah. And you read these words: "Let not the wise glory in his wisdom. Let not the mighty glory in his might. Let not the rich glory in his riches. But let him who glories glory in this, that he understands and knows me, that I am the Lord, who practice kindness, justice, and righteousness. For in these I delight." Now we can't practice these, say, outside of man, for man is his agent. I delight in men who practice kindness, justice, and righteousness. And every time that we do this, he delights in us and rejoices in us. And so, the wisdom of this world is foolishness in the eyes of God. The might of this world is as nothing in the eyes of God. The riches of this world, that's nothing in the eyes of God. But you take these qualities, kindness, and you take justice, and you take righteousness, which is right thinking, and he delights in me, says the Lord. So tonight, you can take it just each of you, and he's promised to share with me when other things, and he must be rightfully busy taking others from what he said in his letter to me. when these fantastic results of prayer, I will tell you about them. They've already begun to prayer, how intense he was in wearing the personalities of others. And this is the only one that I know of where, while in it, he acted in an ill will manner. But if he doesn't act in it, he knows now he shouldn't, for he knows he can be locked in it, and trapped, but really trapped, but by his own words. He said it's so easy to get into any personality if I do it through love. It's like the sperm, or what is the sperm but the creative power of God? And the sperm passes through the surface of the shell. Easily. And yet, on the surface of the shell, there is no hole, no opening, either before or after fertilization. So he goes in like the sperm of God. For what is the sperm of God? It's Jesus Christ. It's called the seed. And we're told in the 3rd chapter of Galatians that Christ is the seed. And your seed, who is Jesus Christ? So he speaks to your seed, your creative power. Well, your creative power is your own wonderful human imagination. And it's so easy to pass through the surface of the egg. Well, the egg in this case is this woman, or the man egg, or you, or me, or anyone that he selects to fructify, as it were, to fertilize with a new concept of self, where it hatches out in a way unknown to the rational mind. If he so loves you that he would like to give you a lift in this world, having exercised his power, he would find it very easy, if love moves him, to possess your personality, and while you then assume for you, as himself, whatever he desired for you. If it's done in love, he will not be trapped in you. And he will move out of it, having fertilized it, and leave it to hatch out. It will hatch out. No power in the world can stop it. This is the power of which I speak, that is Christ Jesus. There is no power on earth comparable to it. There's nothing there. Talk of nuclear energy, talk of this power and that power, there's nothing comparable to this. Talk of wisdom in this world? No. If you take the catalog of wisdom and put it against those that he designated in Scripture, the 12th chapter of the book of 1 Corinthians. And he mentions all the states as they come down from on high. And the first is the apostle. And the second is the prophet. And he brings down the third, the teacher. The fourth, the worker of miracles. The fifth, the healer. He comes all the way down, the administrator, and the last is the speaker of many tongues. Not of failure that people speak of today. The scholars of the world, the most brilliant minds of the world, come under the head of many tongues. And that's the 8th segment. So you, if the child is born, and you stand in the presence of the risen Christ, and you are safe, as you will be safe. If you stand in his presence, it's automatic you're safe. Doesn't mean that you're any wiser than you were before. It only means you're not sinned, and you stand at the top with an enormous power at your command, unknown to those who speak in many tongues. You can enter their spell. You do not know now. But all that you know now is something beyond what they know now. And may I tell you, to play the part now, having shut out all these other levels, they're all contained within you. But you personally have to shut them out when you come into the world this moment in time to be born from above. They'll all return because the law is contained in the one above it, and the two contained in the one above it, and the three contained in the one above it, and finally all contained in the apostle. But he has to shut out everything below him to play this part. So he comes into the world, all these within him, all contained, but he has to shut them out. I only know when I stood in the past with Abdullah, I knew not one word of Hebrew. but on Word. And when I was criticized, or he was criticized for bringing me to the blackboard to instruct this class in Hebrew, I'd only been there a few months, and this one who spoke Hebrew and taught Hebrew, and then he criticized Neville for taking up his side, for taking this novice as the blackboard to describe Hebrew. Neville said, you do not know who he is, neither does he remember who he is. If you only knew who he was, you would sit right now at his feet, but you don't know who he is. Neither does he remember who he is. And then 6 months later, I was instructing this man who taught Hebrew. It came back. It came from the depths of myself. But then shut up, Paul. That was not the part I had to play. The part I had to play here, and came to play here, is simply to tell the story of Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ being your own wonderful human imagination. But when it begins to stir, and really stir, it's a power beyond the wildest dream of man. No man on earth knows its power. If you take someone and take off your own being, what person in this world will believe? You could disengage yourself from your own being and assume the personality of another. And while you are now one with that personality, move into a car waiting for you on the curb, and get into the car dressed in a skirt and wearing the personality of a girl while you formerly was a man. And drive that with the wind against your hair and pull the car to the curb. And then get out of that personality and look at it from the sidewalk and wave at it and see this glorious smile on her face. To find that in the very next day, she has that car. That make, that car, and it's convertible to the pocket down. You know any power on earth like it? There is no power in this world comparable to it. Yet it remains a foolish power in the eyes of the wise. For yourself, that to the Jew, meaning not a person of a certain race, it means a certain state of mind. It's a stumbling block. They can't grasp it. And to the Greek, meaning not people who were born in Greece, but to those who are called wise people, the intellectuals of the world, it's all foolishness. So they would not even listen. Paul has tried it, so they wouldn't try it. They are the giants of the world, they're all honored, so they wear all over their breast the honors that confer upon. But they come to the very bottom of the list of those designated in the 12th chapter of 1 Corinthians. And they are the ones who are the great interpreters of the world, the great translators of the world. They're the great scholars of the world. And so erudite, they can tell you exactly what it meant originally and give you wonderful things and draw part of the structure. For without them, to give to one who was shouted out for a purpose, he wouldn't know the ancient script in its present form, which language he didn't speak when he was there, at a certain moment in time. And so they give it to him in a language that now is assumed to tell the story of Christ. So I say to you, listen to him carefully. And you will only learn it, or if you don't, you not only will be trapped, and I wonder how many people tonight are in the institutions of the world, telling others that they are Napoleon, or that they are this, that, and the other, who slipped into these personalities and became trapped. They did not slip in with love, or if they did, while they were in it, they took on the personality of ill will, as one of Napoleon would. He was simply, in one of his letters, when he wrote to his girlfriend back to Paris, Josephine, and said, I lost 1,200 men today, no one of importance. 1,200 men, but no one of importance. Well, that attitude is simply that personality. You certainly would, as you felt it, and became lost in it, you would have nothing but ill will. And you'd be trapped in it, and then it put you into the little nut house. Because you, being John Brown, are telling the people of the world that you are a voter. So how many are now in these states, completely lost, and trapped and can't get out? But I ask you, would you give up the use of electricity because the misuse is dangerous? Would you give up flying in a plane because there are occasional crashes and all go down. Well, even a ship at sea may be safer, but they do go down. And hundreds are lost. And so would you give up this treasure of traveling across oceans, or flying across oceans, or moving across the city in a car because there are accidents? And because something could go wrong today with your electrical setup and the house will burn down. But if you rebuild a house because one burned from a short circuit, you aren't going to give it up. You're going to put it back in and hope you'll do a better job the next time. Better insulation or something. But the same thing is true of this. So he shared with us again his own experience. And that is, he can get into any personality just as easy as anything in the world, like going to the door. It's so easy for him to assume your personality. But he knows now, when you request something in love, he must not walk it. He must, if he does, state your case and do it. You'll do it. That's called in the faith, the miracle work. It's very high in the branch. You read it, the 12th chapter, you'll see it's the 4th one. Very high. It doesn't mean he can't teach it, or the teacher's the 3rd. It doesn't mean he can't prophesy your tomorrow, because he did with bread. He inwardly knew he was going to get that car because he had the car for it. The prophet is there too. And the apostle, he simply awaits the moment when he stands before the risen Christ. No one is in line for the apostolic succession by any putting on of physical hands. So when certain groups of this world claim that they are from Peter down, when they got into closed doors and voted in the same way that people share for president. And they call themselves the apostolic succession. Forget. No one is sent out by the risen Christ who does not first stand in his presence. And when you stand in his presence, the answer to the question is always love. Or you stand in the presence of infinite love, and he asks you what is the greatest thing in the world. You will answer, love. And he will embrace you, and you will fuse with the body of love. An infinite body of love. And by his side is the personification of infinite power. And you will know you will exercise power to the degree that you love. For there's nothing greater than love. Love is the greatest. But here is power. The personification of infinite might is sitting right there. But here, standing before you, now you're one with him. And you're sent out to act, but to act only in love. Because if you act in love, you will never trap. Never trap. If you act not in love, you run the risk of being trapped. And as he said, I was scared to death that I will be found in some nut thinking that I'm a girl. And he meant it in every word. So he is big enough, in spite of his position in the professional field, to share with us this. And I want to thank him for it. Because I want to thank you for coming and also to caution you. When you go out to test it, and you should test it, to see that you use only love when you exercise this power. And the story is given to us, do unto others what you would have them do unto you. You can't go wrong. Would I want it done unto me? No. Well then, don't do it unto him. You can't go wrong if that is your mark by which you exercise this power. But when a man can sit here tonight and tell me that he finds it so easy, the easiest thing in the world, to pass through the surface of a being and occupy its personality. And that man is so high in the level. For I can say to you, yes, this presence has been born in him. Completely born in him. And so wisdom is justified by her children. And so wisdom is personification of God's might and power and wisdom. That is called Christ Jesus. For Christ Jesus brings forth in us himself, symbolized as a child. Death has been brought forth in you. And so, the child is brought forth. So the wisdom is there, and the power is there. At the present moment, he is now exercising the miracle power. But it doesn't mean when you exercise one, you can't exercise the other, because the highest has been brought forth to him. If he hasn't yet stood in the presence of the risen Christ, it doesn't matter. He still can prophesy what's going to happen. Therefore, he stands on the second level. And he can teach it at the third level. And they're all contained one within the other. And you'll find they're all contained within the apostle. And he is contained within Christ Jesus. So he sends it out from himself. For tonight, you take it seriously. And don't, for one moment, think anything is impossible to this power. There's nothing impossible to the power. So whatever is asked of you, accept it. And do it enough. Experiment. You won't hurt yourself, and you won't hurt the other if you do it enough. Expect no return as to pay. Expect nothing but the success of what you do. Don't do it for one nickel. Don't do it for anything in this world. Just do it for the joy of doing it. What was his delight? He said, my delight, I delight in kindness, in justice, in righteousness. In these things I delight. So if you are rich, don't joy and glory in your riches. That's nothing compared to what really is in store for you. For all the riches of the world will be as nothing to what really is in store for you. He said, the earth is mine, and the fullness thereof. The cattle on 1,000 hills are mine. Were I hungry, I wouldn't tell you. I would slay and eat. For all mine. So this is as nothing compared to what has already been prepared for those who awaken into the new age. So you take this, it belongs to the new age. What he did doesn't belong to this world at all. You see it exercised in this world, for in this statement, he says, I do this in the earth. In that 9th chapter of Jeremiah. And he uses that little phrase, why is it? In the earth I do it here, that you may see. But it belongs to a new age, an entirely different world. So while we're here, we exercise it and simply prove the spouse and prove this wisdom. It doesn't make sense. The average person tonight who is considered a brilliant mind, if he sat here at the end, if he's a cultured person, he wouldn't scream while I'm talking. But when he got out of the place, he said, well, that's a nut house. I mean, that would be the impression of those who are brilliant in mind. It's a nut house. And yet the people who are here are well-dressed, and they seem intelligent. I mean, the same people come all the time. And they'll ask 1,000 questions about this. Because the wisdom of this world is foolishness in the eyes of God, but vice versa. The wisdom of God is foolishness in the eyes of man. You read it carefully in the 1 Corinthians, in the very first chapter. He said, when I came, having been exposed to the risen Christ, I came determined to know nothing but Christ as Him crucified. And he called it the cross of Christ, which was the power of God. For the cross of Christ is the power of God. It doesn't make sense. And all of a sudden, it is in you. This is the cross. And you discover something moving in you. And you can just disengage it from this and put it upon another cross. And give yourself to that cross. Now listen to these words. No one takes away my life. I lay down myself. I have the right to lay down. And I have the right to receive it again. So that no one takes away my life. So he actually put his life forth. To become someone else is to extinguish oneself. Is it not? In effect, to die. He died, and yet not truly died. That's what we are told. You will die, but not really die. So he died. He gave up his personality and took upon himself another. He knows exactly what that 10th chapter of John means now. No one takes my life. I lay down myself. He did. He deliberately put his personality aside and assumed the personality of another. And having done that, he died. He died to his personality and lived to another. And while he lived to the other, he gave it gifts and gave it gifts. But the one who does all things is infinite love. So the moment he departed from the gift of giving loving things and exercised the intellectual ill will, he was trapped and couldn't get out. And struggled for 6 hours. You know what that would be? That you can't get out of a personality that is a female body and yet you are a male. And what doctor in this world will believe it? I am surrounded in my little island of Barbados with doctors. I have doctors all over the country too who are relatives by marriage. And not one of them, my brother, graduated as a psychiatrist, practiced with the mental institution in Barbados for 15 years. Do you think he'd believe it? He wouldn't dream of this story tonight, that someone could get out in an act of service, and then while in it, be moved by some little ill will towards one he thought was monopolizing this one's life, and then by acting in that manner, be trapped. Could he believe it? So he had his 6 years at McGill University in Montreal, and 2 years at the University in London for tropical diseases, 8 years in the great university. Practiced, he's a year my senior, all his life in medicine, and yet he wouldn't for 1 second believe this. He would treat anyone of that nature as the whole vast world treats the snake pit. And that's what it is. But he is big enough, and I thank him from the very bottom of my soul for sharing with us his experience, that he may stop us. If you have any hesitation, don't you do it. Don't enter into the chamber of the other and do anything for if within that chamber what you have to do is going to in any way arouse ill will, or you may be trapped. And if you are trapped, all you will explain to any man in the world of Caesar that will satisfy their reason that you are not really someone other than what you're pretending that you are. You're now saying that you're a girl, and yet your body reveals you to be a man, and so just put you away for safekeeping. So here we are dealing with a power unknown to mortal man. We're dealing with a wisdom unknown to mortal man. There are other stories he told me, and it's too late to even begin to tell. All in conflict with human wisdom. All, but much too long to go into it. But I have his permission to tell it, when in the mood possessively to tell it, but it's too late now. All based upon simply possessing the personality of another and doing for them what they haven't faith to do for themselves. Well, last Tuesday night, you made a very great point of the fact when he said that he retained his own mind. He thought from his mind through their personality, through their mask. So that center, no one on the outside would believe, because they can't see that center. That center is God. That mind that was detached and then assumed the state, the personality of the mask. But if he's playing the personality of a woman, I'm talking about a woman, and we feel that as a woman, who will believe that it is not a distorted mind, and that it should be really put away. So the mind was locked in a state, and he talked about the state in which he was locked. He is doing for the state what the state couldn't do for itself. For the occupant of that state didn't have the faith to do it. They had no money, and would think only in terms of earning enough tips and salaries to gather together what it would take to buy the car. He wasn't concerned about how she had the money. He went to the end. He got into the car. It's her car. He got into the car as the woman, and drove the car as the woman driving the car, and felt the whole thrill of possession. It's a new car. And then she said to him, today, I can't get it off fast enough. It's a new car. She shouldn't work it that fast so soon. And so her complaint is it isn't going fast enough. Well, you shouldn't burn it up in the beginning. I'm not owner of a car. But I'm told you should simply ease it until it takes on, well, work with it. And so he did for her what he couldn't do for himself. But he never lost his identity. Because had he lost the identity, he would already know he was in a body other than his own. But he struggled to get out of that body, couldn't get out of it. Although he knew he was in something that was not his own. So you never lose, I've said that time and again, you never lose your own identity. You're lost in a state, but you don't want to continue in that state. But you know you're not the state. You did for the state what you want to do for it. But you, the occupant, that sense of I-ness never changes.
Tuesday evening, you emphasized that the whole thing had taken place within a dream or vision.
Yes.
And he had done a jet exercise in the waking state. I take it that this story, though, is the waking state.
He wrote me a letter, which I received 2 days after I told the story here. I told it Tuesday night. He said, now to bring this story up to date. It was on Thursday that I had this free. On Friday, I went to the restaurant where he goes almost every day. She was so excited with her new purchase, she took the two of them right out and showed the new car, the same model, the same color, the same conversion. She took the letter, which I did not interpret correctly, at the bottom of the letter in her own bold script. She wrote to me, but she didn't say dear Neville. Well, yes, she simply wrote it. She said, when they came to dinner tonight, I showed them my new car. Okay. Well, I didn't know it was not in, he typed his letter to me and signed it in his own script. But here came an entirely different script at the bottom in pencil. When they came to dinner tonight, I showed them my new car. Well, that could have been an imaginary showing. It wasn't explained beyond that. It could have been that she had imagined she showed them, so I couldn't tell that in that form. I was waiting for confirmation. So to bring it up to date, he wrote me a letter saying, now I must tell you, when we went to dinner on Friday night before we came here, where I brought you the letter, she met us in such an exciting manner that she took us out and showed us a new car, and it was the same color, the same make, and the top was down there. So that really makes it was a fact now in the world of Caesar, not only in the world beyond this or above this.
But the second thing, getting locked in.
That was consciously done. That was consciously done. The getting of the car was in the dream.
Well, he emphasized that there was so much love involved in this act. In the first place, as well as in this one. Is it possible that it's the personality of the girl they took over?
No, because she made it very, very clear she didn't want it hurt. But he confessed in his letter to me, which I brought up earlier. It could be if he loved her, as I love Vicky, he could resent an older man monopolizing the time. And when it comes to divorcing the situation and separating it, then the thought of complex would come into it, and all of a sudden he would just do what he saw her do when one man tried to be offensive. And she turned up her nose, and with a flick of the hand, simply brushed him off as though he was the most obnoxious thing in the world, and sneezed him out of her sight of the world. So he found himself repeating that same gesture in getting rid of this acquaintance. She didn't ask that. She only asked to be free without hurt to the other. And he was big enough to confess it was his own limitation and not hers that did it. Because it was not her desire he was expressing. He was bringing in his own little piece into the picture. We're all right on this level, we're all very human. Extremely human. And quite often we do it with the one we love most. We'd rather cut our hands off, but we did it anyway. But in this case, it's simply something worked in him over the months that he discovered that he was offering his car and taking her home and finally moving into the house. He gave him a key to use it when he wasn't there. And in his eyes, that was not a thing that he should do. And he wanted her free from this present job, give her more money on a better job so she can continue her studies as a singer. She wants to be a singer. She's a beautiful girl, perfectly beautiful girl. If she can't be a singer, she's going to live this whole life and sit up all night just to express some satisfaction or some thanks for one who would just transport her home. So he wanted disentangled from that kind of a job to make more money so she can pursue her studies as a singer. But if he was sure with us that he's been most generous with me, and he knows I'm NBC anyway, I tell him right away. And so he will tell me nothing that I will not tell you because he knows I can't keep it quiet. So I've asked him to please forgive me for my outspokenness because I've got to tell you, as Pastor has told me, for I'm here only to tell the story of Jesus Christ. I have no other story to tell. I know nothing of the world of the scholars. Nothing. That is something that is part of my past. When I tell you that I know vision of a world of fantasy, you may smile. But I haven't gone into any home or home or any estate or estates comparable to the estate that I gave up voluntarily. When I speak of a full complement servant, I mean a full complement servant. And when I speak of secretaries, when I speak of all that goes into glamorous vision, I record it vividly. And I came into extreme poverty. For nothing is poorer in this world than to be in the little island of Barbados wearing a white skin. But nothing. If I came into Barbados wearing a black skin, it would not be the limitation of coming in wearing a white skin. And I remember vividly this enormous mistake. My secretary, not just a secretary, and there was such lusciousness and such abundance that my life was almost dead. And that was a voluntary act on my part to give it up. And then assume complete poverty. That's in Scripture too. And though he was rich, he became poor. That by his poverty you may be rich. That was so. And so, today, the riches that I possess in spirit, well, you can't compare the two that I gave up to what I possess in spirit. Though I had nothing in the world, I have money. I don't get it, they never send it to me. So my ancestors will not have it. So they tell me what it's worth. So I know what it's worth, but it doesn't pay. So they say, your stocks are worth so much. So wonderful to know it's worth so much. But where's the difference? Well, they're in control. They're counting me. Well, they don't count me. And so they have my stock. It is worth so much, a fantastic amount, but it doesn't pay any difference. But that doesn't mean we didn't declare any. Oh, yes, we made money, lots of money. Well, where's the money? Oh, we expend it for the next generation. By then, I'll be complete in my other spell. By the time they decide to pay. Yes, sir.
One further point on this example. Did the girl achieve her freedom after this experience?
Well, she's still on the job. And she has the car. That means that she suddenly jumped up and got another job? No.
So, did she get freed from this individual?
Well, that I don't know. I mean, after all, that's not Russia. This thing happened last Friday. She has a new car. She has made a request since then to be free. He has taken under consideration. He has granted that freedom in his imagination, which is the only way to grant it. And then let it now break the egg and without injury to anyone. I've got to go now. One more, then I'll go.
Well, on this point, he did this so with apparent malice. Now, when he realized this, has he turned that aside now?
My dear, that's not like all these things. He confessed to me something which he asked me to please share with you. I'm cautioning you not to do it as he did. I think that's the most generous thing that one can do. And so, because of that, because tonight, had I not taken him at his word, and shared with you how he was trapped, someone here may want another man who is already happily married, and then put herself into his body, or maybe want a woman and put himself into her body, and then treat the mate like scum, which neither wants that, and find themselves shut in. So I am warning you, when you exercise your imagination, exercise it only lovingly on behalf of another. And whenever you do that, you've done the right thing. Good night.